There we go. That's better. Just had to get the chair out of the way of the screen. And today, guys, we're talking about being more selfish, which seems like a strange topic, but I'm going to get into the reason we're talking about this and why this is important. So today we're talking about being more selfish, but a quick reminder as we get into the podcast today that the goal of the show is to help athletes reach their true potential in sport. The goal of the show is to help athletes reach their true potential, build their dream careers, help you make it through those self-limiting beliefs you have, and actually achieve the things that you want within your career. Because it's easy to fall into the trap. It's easy to fall into, thinking that you can't pursue what you want because it's going to take away from other people, or what you want isn't realistic, or you should listen to this person or that person about what they think. But guys, it's just not real. Like, you need to focus on you, and you need to focus on you so that you can be better for other people. And we're going to talk about a few different instances of this. So we're going to talk about being more selfish, and let's get going in 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Elite Development Podcast, the #1 show for athletes looking to gain an edge on their opponents and build their dream careers in sport. I'm your host, Kenny Dusseault, and today we're talking about being selfish. Now, one of the really important things that we need to think about when we start this episode is, obviously, I understand that when I say be more selfish, a lot of people immediately are going to shut down that message, but I promise you, there's more to it. So if you really want to learn, if you really want to grow today, work through that initial message, that maybe that little bit of initial shock telling you to be selfish or whatever it is you're feeling. But what I need you to understand is that being more selfish yourself, when done the right ways, can be one of the most selfless things that you do. So let me explain. For a long time, I had no idea how to put myself first. My thought was always, how do I, be there for other people? How do I make everyone else's lives easier? What can I do for other people, instead of ever really thinking about what I can do for me? And this wasn't anybody's fault. I'm not sitting here trying to call anybody out or trying to, start any problems or make anybody upset. It was purely my fault. But as an example, even when I got into my degree in sports studies, my parents didn't feel like it was a, good career path, because if you looked at the data, it wasn't. And so instead of pursuing what I wanted to pursue, I wanted to make them happy. So I pursued the degree that they thought was a safer path and they thought would probably lead to something better for me, even though it wasn't what I truly wanted. What that led to was me starting my university years miserable. I didn't like the classes I was in. I didn't want to be doing what I was doing. And even though it was, the better, safer option, it just wasn't for me. And so by trying to be selfless, I was making myself miserable. And again, this isn't calling my parents out. They were doing what they thought was best for me. That, great. But it was just not what was best for me, because I know what's best for me better than someone else will. And it's the same thing that I want to reiterate with you guys as well. So with that beginning of the university degree, again, I ended up kind of getting my crap together, understanding what I was doing was not the right move for me, and actually making the switch. But in the beginning, I was trying to make them happy. So I took the degree that I didn't really want to take, but, according to them, made more sense. And it led to just miserable feelings. And so when I made the switch and I decided to follow what I wanted to follow, that led to the career that I have now, owning the gym, working with athletes in 10 different countries around the world. I remember in my last relationship, we had a whole host of problems. And again, this isn't calling anyone out. This isn't, trying to start any problems. I feel like she would say the same thing if we were to talk about it. We had a whole host of problems. And when we talked about the future, I had ideas of things that I wanted to do, but I was fully ready to put anything and everything that I wanted to do aside to do whatever she wanted to do, because it was more important to me that I make her happy than I actually make myself happy. And again, this led to resentment. This led to me not showing up well in the relationship. This led to me not being a very good partner. because I was so focused on not putting myself first because I felt like that was a selfish thing to do. And that ended with absolute fireworks in that relationship. Definitely not the right move for either of us. But again, I'm not trying to put any blame on anybody. I'm fully taking responsibility for my part and all that. But it was because I wasn't willing to even remotely put myself first. And then over the last 6 years or so, since that relationship, since finishing university and all of that, what I really started to realize was that I show up at my best for other people when I put my needs first. When I moved to Calgary, I was scared, but I was happier than I've ever been before because I was doing something purely for me. I wasn't doing this to please somebody else. I wasn't doing this to, make my parents happy or make my girlfriend happy or do whatever. I was making the decision purely for me to follow what I wanted to do. I moved across the country, and as much as it was terrifying, it was the first time in my life where I felt the true joy of, wow, I'm doing this for me. And what I realized as I started feeling that true joy of truly putting my needs first was that I was more excited to do things for other people. I was more excited to, see how I could show up for someone else, see what I could do for someone else, see how I could bring value to the life of somebody else because I was bringing value to my own life. And now that progressed a lot as well into, as I started my business. I remember in the first year and a bit of running a business, there were a whole host of issues because I was right through COVID. But outside of that too, I felt like every waking moment that my eyes were open, I had to be focused on clients. And so every moment of every day, I felt like as soon as I woke up to as soon as I went to bed, I had to be focused on clients, focused on clients, focused on clients, or else I wasn't a good coach or I wasn't a good business owner, or else things might fall apart. But then again, what I started to realize over time doing that was the more I thought to myself, I need to focus every minute of every day on clients, the more I realized I started resenting my business. I started resenting the fact that I felt like every minute of every day was taken up and I was trying to do anything and everything I could to help them, but then maybe they weren't showing up for themselves the way that I was showing up for them, and then I'd start resenting them, and then it just led to this whole host of weird feelings of like, I'm doing what I love for a living and I'm annoyed every day. And I realized again, it's because I wasn't putting myself first. I was showing up for these other people as much as I possibly could, but it got me to the point where I was neglecting my own health. I was neglecting my own relationships. I was neglecting who I am as a person so that I could be there for them. So then when they weren't showing up for them, or they would, miss a session or reschedule something, I'd get pissed off. And then I realized that I just needed to start putting me first. The way that I'm wired, I love long work days. I don't want a 9 to 5. I don't want 8 hours. I love coming home at the end of the day, absolutely exhausted, feet hurting because I've been on my feet running around all day. Like, I love that feeling. So don't get me wrong, a majority of my day is still business focused, clients focused, learning, education, all that kind of stuff, because that's just what I love. But every single morning, I wake up at 4:30 in the morning to spend an hour focused on me. I spend an hour meditating, journaling, just reflecting on where I'm at, where I want to be, the next steps towards getting towards those goals. And then I spend an hour in the gym. So by 6:30 in the morning, I'm actually starting my work day, but closer probably to 7. By 7:15 a.m., I'm actually starting my work day, but I've spent over 2 hours focused on myself. And the reason that's so important is because now I always feel like I've put that money in the bank for me. I've done those things for me. And the reason that's so important is now I don't feel any resentment towards clients, towards friends, towards family, because I've done what I need to do for me. I feel good because I put my head in a good space. I've put my mind in a good space. I've worked on my physical fitness. I've done the things that I need to do for me so that I can show up at my best for other people. And what that's shifted in me is now every single day I show up grateful and happy and excited and ready to go to work, ready to go to the gym, ready to talk to clients, ready to deal with any issues that pop up. So the level that I'm able to deliver to the people that I work with is way fucking higher because I spend time focused on myself. And this is why being selfish is not a bad thing. This is why being selfish is actually one of the most selfless things you can do when you do it properly. When I say be selfish, I don't mean don't spend any time, like I don't mean don't spend any time on clients, on teammates, on anything else. I mean, put yourself first, because if you put yourself first, you're going to be able to show up better for those other people. One of the prime places that I see this, and I want to talk about a couple of different examples, is athletes that I've spoken to that have kids. And this is obviously coming from somebody who doesn't have kids. So I'm not intending this to be me trying to tell anyone how to parent. But one of the coolest conversations I've had with multiple different athletes that I've known that have kids is them learning how to put their own needs and their own training and their own desires and their dreams and everything ahead of their children, because that means that they can show up as a better, happier, more positive version of themselves for those kids. Because the worst feeling in the world that I could imagine a parent would have is resentment towards a child because I didn't pursue my dreams because of you. You know what I'm saying? And again, I'm not trying to sit here and tell anyone how they should parent. I'm not trying to sit here and tell anyone that I have answers when it comes to parenting. Oh, hi from Baker Lake, Nunavut. I appreciate you tuning in. But what I want to really reinforce with that statement is that putting yourself first is not a bad thing, even if you are a parent. Because putting yourself first allows you to show up as a better version of yourself for that child. And that doesn't mean don't ever spend time with your kid. That doesn't mean put your family in a bad situation. Like, it's taking the sentence that I said within the context of your life is obviously going to be different depending on who you are, where you're at, etc. But having those conversations with those athletes that are parents and having them explain why, even though they have kids, they're still focused around achieving their own goals, because they want their kids to look up to them as someone who pursued their passion at the highest level. They don't want their kids to look and say, well, you know, my mom was a loser or my dad was a loser because I came along, and then they just stopped working on their goals. And then one of the other examples, it was a conversation with an athlete that I had recently, and they were talking about how the last couple of months they've been really just off, you know, mentally, physically. They're just really not feeling themselves. And the reason that they said they weren't feeling themselves is because they felt like they were always trying to pour into everybody else. They were, you know, they were in the corner for a number of different events that was taking up a lot of their time, a lot of their energy. Work had been really busy. All of this kind of stuff had been going on. So they were talking about how, you know, they were struggling a lot with their own goals, their own training, everything like that, because they were spending so much time on these other people. And when I was talking to them about it, I said, you know, and how are you feeling doing all that? Like, you know, how do you feel day to day when these people are taking your energy? Like, do you feel like you're really showing up well for them? And they said, no. And so now, instead of putting themselves first, they're putting all these other people ahead of their own training, ahead of their own needs, ahead of their own goals. And they're not even showing up at 100% for those people, because they're sitting there resenting the people that are taking up their time and their energy. And so what I really want to touch on with that is just understand that if you're stressing yourself out, you're, you know, committing to all these other people's needs, these other activities, these other people's goals, and you're not committing to yourself, what's going to start to happen right away is you're going to put yourself in a position where you're not showing up well for yourself and you're not showing up well for other people. But in this conversation with this athlete, what we talked about is just developing a morning routine. Just developing a morning routine, taking 20, 30 minutes every morning to just focus on them. Focus on their mindset, focus on their energy, focus on making sure you're starting your day from a place of calm gratitude instead of starting your day in chaos. And simply by making that switch, Dusseault was telling me within the last couple of days alone, they're already feeling a huge difference from where they were a month ago. So within just a few days of learning to take the first 30 minutes of the day to themselves, they felt a huge difference mentally and physically from where they were a month ago. And so, guys, what I want you to really understand and what I really hope everybody takes away from this is learn to put yourself first so that you can show up better for the other people in your life. Learn to put yourself first. Learn to put your own needs, your own desires, your own goals above other people's. Because if you're not showing up for you, then you can't show up for them. But the better you show up for yourself, the better place you're going to be in mentally, the better place you're going to be in physically, and the better you're going to actually show up for the other people in your life. So guys, I appreciate you all. I hope you got some value from the show today. I truly enjoy doing these for you guys. That's why a new episode is coming out every day, Monday through Friday, through the week. And so if you got some value from this, I would love to know what it was. So make sure to send me a message. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast, the YouTube channel, follow me across all my other social media platforms, all the good stuff. And I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will catch you on the next episode.